Todd here will see you up to your room. Room 2, first elevator, first floor.
Thank you.
Okay,
Right
thank
this
you.
way, please.
Enjoy your stay.
Hi, I'm Gayle.
Well, I'm sorry, but we are completely booked tonight at the Continental.
Oh no. Could you check once again, please?
What was the name again?
Gayle Sequeira.
One moment, please. Jerome. Yes, I have a guest here. No. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. My apologies. It does seem we have a room for you after all. You will be in room 6.
Got it.
Please take your seat for dinner at our hotel restaurant no later than 6:15.
Okay.
And our manager, Mr. Cormack, would like to have a drink sent up to your room. Would you prefer a picante, an Eastern Standard, or our mocktail?
I'd like a mocktail, please.
A mocktail. Wonderful. Todd will be right back down in just a moment.
Sure.
Room 6.
Thank you.
First elevator, second floor.
Got it.
Have a comfortable stay at the Continental.
Right this way. Thank you for your patience. May I ask?
First elevator, second floor. Well, I'm sorry, but we are completely booked tonight at the Continental.
Hi, I'm Gayle Sequeira and I'm here in London where they've created New York in the 70s ahead of the Continental, which releases on Amazon Prime Video. Let's go check it out. Hi, it's so lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you. I was reading up on the history of the John Wick franchise and it's a fascinating story. I mean, it went from a spec script, it's called Scorn, to now 4 movies and 2 spin-offs in the works. There's Continental and there's Ballerina.
Yep.
So tell me about what your biggest learnings have been throughout these franchise.
Oh, we've learned so much. I mean, we came from a very small independent movie where, we didn't know if it would have any distribution or anyone would ever see it, to giant blockbuster and franchises that we are today. I mean, I think, every movie teaches you something. I think we've learned, we've learned how to manage bigger teams and bigger crews and how to storytell in a different way. I mean, it's a blessing to be able to make this franchise and kind of have the challenge of expanding the universe. And so we've really learned how to create a universe that was really, not based on any IP. So that's the biggest learning curve for us, how to find new and exciting ways to tell the story.
I think the thing I learned the most is if the audience is emotionally invested in your character and loves your character, you could bring them to crazy places and they forgive it. When coming into the first movie, I thought, are the audiences going to go, how do you justify 45, 50 people being killed because of the death of this dog and stealing of the car? At a certain point, they're going to be like, that's depraved. Or he's overreacting. In fact, they were so with him emotionally that they were okay with whatever he needed to do to do better. And then on the second film, we're like, okay, well, we don't have a dog. We don't have the same thing pulled from him. Are people still going to care? And they did. And so what we learned is Keanu Reeves is John Wick. They love him. As soon as he shows up, you don't have to work hard for it. They love him. And that's very freeing in terms of storytelling. You don't have to do this arduous first act like, oh my God, please audience, love our hero. The moment he shows up, the moment the name comes on, they're in. And we can bring them into crazy places, which we have with this character.
So the music in the Continental is definitely one of the highlights of the show for me.
Thank you.
It's so playful, it's so propulsive. At what point in the process did you come on board? Did you read the script? Were you on set?
Yeah, I wasn't on set, unfortunately, but I was involved from the script stage. So I was sketching music right from that point before they'd even started shooting. So and that process is interesting. You start sketching ideas based on what you're imagining, but it's not really until you get that first edit and then you start putting that stuff to screen where it's like, does it work? Doesn't it? Most of it doesn't, but then there's maybe like a little bit that, maybe sparks an idea or is interesting. And then that's sort of how you start off.
John Wick is obviously such an impeccably tailored franchise. And so I wanted to ask you though about the demands of creating costumes for an action-heavy show. Are there special considerations you have to keep in mind? Like the fabric, does it have to be durable, easy to move around in? Do you have to make space for padding?
So yes, the answer is yes to all of those. And as you say, the John Wick franchise is all about action. So when I started on the Continental, before any cast were cast, I knew that I needed to accommodate all the action and stunts and that was likely to occur. So I had about 150 suits made, different, navy, black, pinstripe, all these shirts from very small to very large, because obviously stuntmen will pad up, so they may just be an average chest, but by the time they put all their pads and their elbows and knees on, they go up a few sizes. And also the fabric was important, so we had to have a flexible, a weave so that it wasn't going to rip at the first bit of action. So yes, to all of those questions, it was a massive consideration.
Given how much people love John Wick and Keanu, how apprehensive were you doing a spin-off without him?
Very. There's no question that it's that the proof of concept is, will the audience that loves the John Wick films see something that doesn't have the character of John Wick in it? The only way I could describe how it feels, and I wasn't in this room, I wish I was it Marvel, when Marvel went through Iron Man and Captain America, kind of all their well-known characters, and they started making, Guardians of the Galaxy or Ant-Man or Captain Marvel, whatever it was. I don't even know what they are, but no one, they were not household character names, and they were betting on, okay, will people just respect and love the Marvel brand, and they'll come because Marvel, ensures a level of quality. I'm hoping that people will see the show because they go, I see the John Wick movies. They're a lot of fun. And I do want to learn more about the Continental. I do want to learn more about some of the other characters and the world and the rules. And we never had the time to just explore that in the films because it's such, the pacing is so intense. So, but were we apprehensive? Oh my God, of course we were. I mean, Keanu's our North Star.
What was the difference between what you imagined the show to be like and what it eventually became?
Well, Albert was very clear with his visual references. His whole kind of treatment for the show was very clear, and I think actually he more or less, it was more or less like for like in terms of what he achieved. And I mean, the show looks fantastic, even better than I could have imagined. So it wasn't that it was that far away. It's just you often don't know what the pacing is going to be. Particularly with a script, you can read it one way on the page. And then actually it plays out quite slowly on the screen, or maybe it plays out quicker than you think. So then in terms of the music, it's just about sometimes that pace not quite matching what's actually happening on screen.
Are there any no-nos when it comes to an action-heavy show? Like I'm just thinking of Edna Mode from The Incredibles going, no capes because they hamper movements.
We didn't have that, but obviously you do try and not have. Stuntmen don't want things that are going to incapacitate them. But we didn't have any specific, you can't have this, you can't have that. We did have requests about stuff like, I don't know if you've seen F3, part 3 of this, but we've got a lot of different assassins and some martial arts assassins. So he was, I can't remember which martial art, but they wear these rings so that, the sword doesn't hit or and we had original ones from a martial arts centre, which were very heavy. So the stuntman wouldn't wear them. And he had to have them because they finished the costume. It would have been wrong. So we had to make them out of a lightweight metal because he wouldn't wear them because they were very heavy. Fair play to him. But so it's just little things like that.
So when conversations around a spin-off were happening, you'd said you didn't want to do a spin-off set in another Continental with another manager because that would feel too John Wick-like. What were some things you wanted to specifically avoid while going into this?
Into this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of doing a present day stepped on too much of what we were doing in the movie. So I think we were really looking for a new way to tell the story. And when we heard the idea of it being set in the 70s and surrounded and taking place in the Continental, we thought that was such an important idea and so interesting because the Continental is sort of the heartbeat of the films, and the entryway in, and such a cool and interesting set piece that we just really didn't get to dive in. So for me, it was really exciting to be able to like dig into the Continental, the rules, who works there, how did it all start?
I think we wanted to avoid making a prequel that demanded the audience to know and be familiar with the films. That was like too much inside baseball, you know, and I think we did. I think you could not have seen any of the John Wick films and watched the TV show and still be able to engage it and follow it and not feel lost. Like, you're like, what the hell is going on? It sits on its own. And so I think that was a big, you know, task for us, which is don't be so, you know, esoteric in the John Wick world, but let it be able to stand on its own.
I was reading this interview with Albert, and he said he's a huge fan of needle drops, and the show has so many great ones.
Yes.
So tell me about the art of the needle drop. Do you have a song selection? Do you whittle it down? How do you know which scenes deserve a needle drop?
So he had this long playlist that he sent to me when I first came on board, and it was full of all sorts of stuff. I mean, I think the playlist must have been, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours long, and I think it was just a collection of things that he'd been listening to, things that he thought the world of the Continental might sound like, and I mean, he was really the mastermind behind these, you know, each of the needle drops within the show. So I mean, I can't really speak to his choices, but they're fantastic, you know, and they work really well, and they themselves sort of help to score certain scenes, and I think they bring a certain lightness, they bring a certain like playfulness to the show. You know, my role with the score was to ground us in the seriousness of what's happening and mark the action, mark some of the emotional beats, and but that sort of interplay between the score and the needle drops. I mean, there's a good example of it right at the beginning with the Donna Summer. The cue is tempo synced and key matched to Donna Summer, so you sort of get this seamless blend between the diegetic and non-diegetic, and I quite like that interplay. If there's a chance to do it, that was a really good example of being able to do it, but you don't always get those opportunities, but it was nice to play with that.
I was reading this interview with the movie's costume designer, Luca Mosca, and he said that for one scene in the second movie, the director, Chad Stahelski, told him, imagine everyone in this room has $20 million in their bank accounts. That's the level of wealth that you have to illustrate. So what were some of the tips or tricks that the director, Albert Hughes, gave you when you started working on the show?
Well, just to be as authentic as possible, you know, and as stylized as possible. You know, we didn't have, you know, it's not a film, it is TV, and the budget obviously is very different to the Wick films. So we had restrictions. I had restrictions, you know, I had to stick with the budget, so I had to utilize it as best I could. But, you know, we did want that stylized world, and I hope the audience think it is there, because you know, we did a huge amount of original pieces for this particular program, because, you know, they sort of provide their own charm. But I do like the $10 million question.